very much. Thank you, Judge. Please be seated. Anybody here from Boston? I'm looking for a translator, so he or she can tell you what I'm really saying up here. But anyway, great to be here. I spoke to a group of Marines down in Kent, Missouri about 6 months ago. Pretty much the same cast of characters, and couldn't wait to get back with a group of sailors and Marines again. I want to tell you right up front that I have PTSD. I've had PTSD for 43 years. And I didn't get it on the day, as a result of the day that I was wounded in Vietnam. That was June 15th, 1969. I got it about 8 or 9 months before that, shortly after I arrived in country. And I was involved in my very first firefight. And I was sitting on a Mike 6 up above the coxswain's flat. And Mike's out. Okay. Anyway, an RPG came in and detonated right next to the first-class gunner's mate who was manning the 20-millimeter cannon on my boat, and the ammo cooked off, and he was just blown to pieces, and he was about 5 feet away from me when this happened. And that's the memory that I have kept for the last 43 years. When this happened, I sucked it up and didn't want anybody to think that I had courage problems, or that I needed help, or I was crazy. I had bad dreams, I had trauma. I didn't take any medicine, thank goodness, but it's lasted for those 43 years. At that time, they didn't have the help that they have right now. Right now, it's all there for you, and you heard some stories this morning. You'll hear some more as we go through the day. But before I get going, I would just like to really speak out about Sergeant Legaldo and Gunny Wilson and for Colonel Matthews for sharing their stories. I mean, those are such personal stories that takes an immense amount of moral courage to come up and speak to a group of not strangers, because we're all one family here, but people that you barely know. So my hat's off to them. I don't know if I could ever do that myself. My story, what I'm going to talk to you about today, is not quite as personal. It's more trying to reach out to you to make sure you know and have the tools, that the tools are available to not only help yourselves, but to help your fellow Marines and sailors. And the reason this group is chosen is because you really are the tip of the spear. You're the ones that have the day-to-day contact with the young Marines and sailors. And you're the ones that have to carry this message. Whatever you learn today, you may like some of it, you may like a lot of it, but whatever it is, take it back to your Marines and make sure they know what's available to them and can use the resources. I don't have a PowerPoint presentation or anything like that, but I did make a couple of notes. One of the things about, after I got out of the Navy, let me put it that way, I worked for the Commonwealth of Massachusetts for about 12 years, heading up their veterans programs up there in Massachusetts. And these are state programs. And this, right after I took the job in 2001, 9/11 happened, of course, and we had a whole new group of veterans returning home from Commonwealth of Massachusetts. So most of my experience is not with active duty troops as much as it is with returning veterans. But up till that time, you know, the veterans were mostly Vietnam guys, or a fair amount of people with PTSD and drug addiction or substance abuse or whatever. But starting in 2002, 2003, we saw a whole new generation of men and women coming home from war, just like eventually you'll be coming home from war, with a completely different set of issues. So we had to really retool what we were doing. What really prompted us into action was a young Marine named Corporal Jeffrey Lucy, who in 2005 was released from the Marine Corps, came home to a little town up called Belchertown, Massachusetts, believe it or not. And he had some real issues of readjusting. His dad was a Vietnam Marine, but Jeffrey would lock himself in his cellar or his basement room, wouldn't come out. He was a completely changed individual from what he had been when he went away. His parents recognized that. They sought help. They went to the Veterans Administration at the hospital up there in Western Massachusetts. Kind of a runaround, to tell you the truth. And they finally convinced a psychiatrist up there that their son was indeed suicidal. The psychiatrist agreed and made an appointment for Jeffrey 28 days down the road. Jeffrey went home that night and hanged himself. And that was a wake-up call for a lot of us in Massachusetts. Fortunately, at that time, I ran across a young Marine corporal who had been badly wounded by a rocket over in Iraq, and he had some serious internal injuries as well as spinal injuries. He was confined to a wheelchair. And he was 22 years old. His wife had divorced him while he was over there in Iraq, and after he got hurt. I mean, he was, you would think, in the depths of despair, but he wasn't. He came to me and he said, "Hey, I want to help my fellow Marines, my fellow soldiers, sailors, airmen coming home." Make a long story short, he, at the age of 22 years old, set up a program called a SAVE program. It's an acronym for something which I don't even remember what it was, but it's made up of young returning servicemen and women who suffered wounds of war, both physical, emotional, or both. And their job, about 8 or 10 of them, was to do peer-to-peer counseling among returning veterans coming home to Massachusetts. We were able to get the names and addresses of every separating serviceman or woman coming back home. We sent them a welcome home book, telling them all the benefits they were entitled to, and this, that, and the other thing. And this SAVE team traveled the state. And you got to remember, these men and women, a couple of them in wheelchairs, one with a prosthetic leg, they all had serious emotional problems. But when they sit down with somebody like you and try to convince you to seek help, they have credibility. They have a lot more credibility than let's say I have, or one of the sergeant majors or generals have, because they've been through it themselves. They have faced and have, in most cases, overcome the same issues that you and your fellow Marines are or will be facing. So they became a huge asset to us. And it was all really prompted by the unfortunate death of Corporal Jeffrey Lucy. And when we set up this program, we invited the Lucys to come down and just share their thoughts with us. And they spent 3 days with us, and we shared all the grief that they had gone through after losing their son. And as a result of this whole thing, it was just the awareness within our little state of Massachusetts and within VA and the state programs and all, it just made all the difference in the world. So it's an example of the resources that are available to you. Everybody coming home, even from a peacetime deployment, I had 30 years in the Navy. I made a lot of deployments, and a lot of them fun deployments, but even when you come back home, there's a readjustment issue involved. And combat, of course, exacerbates that problem 100-fold. And so many things are different when you come home. When you're over there, and you can relate to this, I know, it's a very, very structured life. You're surrounded by the people who are nearest and dearest to you. You rely on each other 24/7 for however long your deployment is. You live, breathe, eat together for X number of months. Then you come home, and all of a sudden, where are your buddies? Where's your support system? Where's the gunnery sergeant telling you to do this, that, or the other thing? They're not there. You're coming home to a family, perhaps, who doesn't recognize you when you came home because you're a different man or woman than you were when you left X number of months ago. Your kids are yelling and screaming, and it really pisses you off, and you want to get back to Afghanistan or Iraq where you can get some peace. And these are real issues. And so our job as leaders, and you are leaders of the Marine Corps, is to keep this stressful situation from turning into a disorder. And I say do that by utilizing the various measures that you've heard about today and that are present on the base and elsewhere. The bottom line, seek help. And I know we've heard stories this morning how support systems are there. And I found peer support to be the very most effective. Just sitting down with a fellow Marine and if you're in a leadership position, you know, asking him or her how they're doing. And if you're not in a leadership position, if you want help from somebody else, sitting down with a fellow Marine and say, hey, I've got some issues that I need some help on. You know, no doctor, psychiatrist, psychologist, and I know we have some in the room, and I applaud and love the work they're doing, but I think the most effective way is just one-on-one between you and your fellow Marines, because you're part of the same family. I was at a meeting of the Veterans Administration up in New England just earlier this week, and a woman Marine, former Marine named Melinda, came to this meeting, and she's part of an advisory group that I'm on, trying to advise the VA on how to better take care of returning vets. But anyway, Melinda had a story about her time in the Marine Corps, where she had some issues. She didn't go really into what they were, because I think they were kind of personal. But she went to her chain of command and basically was told, hey, you're a Marine, tough it out. And she tried. She, in this case, did not get the help she needed. And it might have worked in the old days, but it's not going to work in these days. It just won't cut it. And as you heard this morning from Sergeant Major Green and others, the world has changed, and your chain of command is much more sensitive and attuned to your needs. But anyway, this attitude that Melinda faced in the Marine Corps, it not only failed to address issues involving, it not only fails to address the issues facing your Marines, but it also seriously damages the high regard that the American people have for the United States Marine Corps. And by slacking off and not going an extra mile or extra step for one of your Marines, that could reverberate when that person gets out of the Marine Corps in a lousy attitude, spreads the word that the Marine Corps doesn't care about their people. That's not true, but you know how a word like that can get out and can damage the good work done by all the other people. I just want to wrap it up by saying that you in this room here right now, you're part of a fighting machine. I know that. Your staff NCOs know that. Your captains and your colonels know that. But you're the ones at the tip of the spear. You are the ones that see your Marines every day and are supposed to know their issues and know how to address those issues. You're the mentors, the protectors, the leaders of Marines. The unit is only as strong as its weakest link, and you're all ones who recognize when somebody cannot give him or her utmost, and you have to steer them in a safe haven where they can be helped to come back to be part of the team. And we've heard stories today, and I've heard stories in the past, that the Marine Corps will help you stay in, no matter what your issues are. If you want to stay in the Marine Corps, they will help you do that and achieve your dreams. So thank you for having me here today. I'll be glad to take a couple of questions if we have time. Sometimes people ask me silly questions or I try to answer, but no question is a silly question. So I'm here to take a shot at it. Thank you.